Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe with the Circuit 123. Again, I actually have Rick Rosinski here from Linux World Services for the Blind. We're doing a Linux 4 video. In fact, there is so much to cover, and he has volunteered more of his time to go ahead and go over some stuff with Linux that we went ahead and we may do, depending on how much stuff he can cover with us, we may do another Linux video after this one. So stay tuned. And Rick, so last we left off, you were talking about, the experience you had, going from Windows to Linux, and then we talked about what you're doing right now with it. And from what I understand, basically, you basically feel that Red Hat is the most commercial, currently to date version of Linux, as they do have licensing and you can get certifications. And you want to go into your server section of it, right?
Right. Okay. Well, one of the hardest things about doing things on the server level is that there was so little documentation in the past on how to get like a mail server set up and a web server and MySQL and Apache, like a LAMP. Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP server set up, as well as a mail server. You used to have to dig through the documentations. Everything's command line. Everything kind of still is, at least the way that I did mine. But when I discovered this website called howtoforge.net, it's basically a site for a bunch of things, including Linux and different servers. Like, ran into a tutorial on how to do a virtual. Using a virtual domains and setting up a multiple mail server and multiple website server. Anyway, boiling down to it, what I got at home now, I set up my own FTP server, web server, MySQL database, and PHP server, and a mail server, and where you can kind of like have your own domain name. Like mine is like rickerzinski.net, and where I can have my own email set up, and if I wanted to, I can actually add another domain to that same server.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can actually do a whole different domain and add it in there. It'll just be going into a different port. For those that know about ports and stuff, so I can have multiple websites hosted for multiple people, and have them have multiple email accounts and emails. It could be a whole ISP host solution if I wanted people to have their own websites on there.
Oh, excellent.
And their own mail servers.
So if you wouldn't mind, Rick, actually telling, because you are the MCSE instructor, and by the way, MCSE stands for Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, and that is the Microsoft branding of certifications. And currently, Rick is actually MCSE 2003. You do have your Network Plus and A Plus as well, am I correct?
Right.
Okay. So basically, can you explain some of the differences that you see between a Linux LDAP or AD environment versus a Windows AD environment? And basically AD stands for Active Directory, which is the back-end user management system.
Well, I would definitely say that Windows is definitely a whole lot easier, and it's got a whole lot more features that are available to the users. Now, going into the Open LDAP, because Active Directory is basically running on LDAP, Lightweight Access Directory Protocol, and Linux, in the Linux open source world, there's something called Open LDAP, and it's a little bit, it's different. It's harder to implement than Windows. You have to do a lot of command line stuff to get it going, but there's tutorials on that on howtoforge.net. But basically, the most that you can achieve, if you try to have two domains, like a Linux and a Windows, try to stack them up side by side and see which one compares to the other. The Linux one, once you have it fully set up and going, including group policies and everything else that you have in Active Directory.
And just to cut you off right there for a second, group policy, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know, group policy is basically the ability to control control basically how much or how little an end user can do. For example, you can take away certain icons, take away certain abilities in using the computer. You can regulate how long or how little time a person has to use on the computer. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay. The most that you can achieve with those group policies is that the domain is at the NT 4.0 level, which is actually
not good.
quite limited compared to the 2003 format. And so Microsoft still stands out being ahead. But they're going to be changing that coming up here. They've been working on like a new version of Samba. The whole darn thing with the group policies and all that stuff is all based on Samba. That's kind of makes Linux do Windows tricks basically on the file server level and at the domain level and stuff like that.
Okay.
But Samba 3 is the one that they've been using for years, that's been implemented for years, and Samba 4 promises to do a whole lot more with the group policy, enabling more 2003-like features, but that's still in development.
Right. So let me ask you a question. If you were going to implement right now in an enterprise-level environment for Company X, would you use a Windows-based solution or a Linux-based solution, and why?
Okay. If it's a single domain environment where you don't have like multiple domains and stuff like that, if it's just a single domain environment with one single Active Directory, where group policies are, where you can get away with the basic group policies and scripts, I would attempt the Linux side of things there.
Okay.
But if you had to have, or if you have to implement Exchange at all in any way, if you have to use Microsoft Exchange Server in any way, because of the calendar features and the publishing features and things like that, then you're kind of forced to have to do Microsoft. But there's groupware out there. There's an open source groupware that you can use to replace Exchange on that level anyway.
Right.
But if you're going to go with multiple domains and you got more than one forest, if you're talking like forests and like merging two different companies, I would be more comfortable with using Windows 2003.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's definitely. And would you say that even for a small business, because in the scheme of things, yeah, it might seem easier to set a Windows domain, a Linux domain up, or a Linux system environment in a single domain environment. However, would you say that a Microsoft, in the total cost of ownerships and for your return on investment, I think from what I've seen thus far is that you're going to have a better chance with Windows because the skills are more widely available for a network administrator for Windows than they are for Linux.
That's definitely true. You would find more, going to the market. If you're going to go hire someone, they're more likely to have those Windows skills in place more than they would have the Linux side.
Right.
You would have to pay a whole lot more because the Linux administrator will most likely have the Windows skills and Linux, and they would probably requiring a whole lot more salary versus just a Windows administrator.
All right.
That's more readily available and cheaper to hire. Yeah.
Right.
But the catch is, you might be able to pay someone a lot less to support the Windows, but on the other side of the coin, all the client access licenses and all that stuff involved with.
Hey Rick, I'm sorry I'm going to have to cut you off, but looks like we're coming to an end here. But definitely, this has been Joe at the Circuit 123, and Rick, definitely appreciate you having you on.
Okay, all right, thanks.